Coming up on this episode of Don't Panic, we've got some tech news, including Snapchat going for billions of dollars. How can you get your piece of that? We're also going to talk about Vizio watching you and Windows 10 in the cloud. All that plus our Super Bowl wrap-up coming up now on a brand new Don't Panic. This is Don't Panic, episode number 157, recorded February 6th, 2017. TVs that watch you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Don't Panic, the technology podcast that always plays from behind until they score that final touchdown. I'm Sean Jennings, joined as always by our two MVPs of this league. It's Dan Miller and Colby Rabideau. I think that's probably the third time I've referred to you guys as MVPs in one of these openings. And it's true.
Really?
It's true, frankly. So I can't disagree or argue with that.
Sean, when are you going to let me pay someone with an accent to read some of our openers? Or just a random person on the internet?
You know, it is really funny. A bit of a tangent. Dan, you can do it anytime you want. I'm not going to stop you. But I was going through. Some
No, what was the thing you would not let me do? I forget what it was.
Oh,
Yes, to record it. This was it. To record an episode and then pay a lot of money to have other people
dub our dialogue.
First transcribe what we say and then dub it over again.
In like
But
funny
it's
accents.
all our words. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I can't imagine why we said no. Frankly, when you put it like that, it's an obvious idea.
We can put our Amazon referral revenue towards
all $9 of it. I don't know what kind of
Hey.
voice talent we can get for that, but it's worth a shot.
And you saved.
No, I was gonna say I was flipping through some of our old videos the other day, and I was playing them like back to back, but just the beginning part, and just me at the beginning saying coming up on this, but like over the last 3 years, like the progression, and I was like at different points in my life, like I was watching time go by. I'm like, I should edit all these together. It'd be like, some sad music, like this is what I've become. I used to be so young and optimistic. Those were
Young
the days.
optimistic guy in a apartment in Poughkeepsie.
That's right. That's exactly
whole
right.
world ahead of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now I'm a slightly lamer guy in Houston, Texas. Who knew? Who knew? Now I do before we jump in. Speaking of Houston, I do want to talk about the Super Bowl. And we got a few other things, but I want to remind everybody, especially those watching live, you can call in and chat with us during the show because we want to hear from you. While we're doing it, the phone number 508-644-TECH. That's 508-644-8324. The number right there on the screen for you. You can call in, join the conversation. And, guys, are you ready for this? What have we been promising people the whole time for the first person to call in and add something to the conversation?
They get a tote bag, and it's stuffed with goodies.
Look at that.
Oh man.
Look at that.
Wow.
I wasn't shitting you when I said we got tote bags.
I bet you could tote so much stuff in that.
Oh my God, they're
Yeah, like
spacious. They're
groceries.
canvas.
Oh
Look at that.
wow.
I mean,
Oh, my
they go
Lanta.
for miles. Look, it's like an optical illusion. It never stops.
Yeah.
So we got these dope tote bags.
Bag
So
of holding.
call in during the show. 508-644-TECH is the number. And our fantastic hosts may be getting one of these in the mail soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Wow.
Not Colby, though. Okay.
No. Only the fantastic hosts.
Oh, yes, only the ones I like. Sorry, don't take it personally. Except it's personal. So you guys, obviously the big thing in the news discussion, Super Bowl was this past weekend, as I alluded to. Did you guys have the opportunity to watch the game, enjoy the game, eat some food, have some fun with some folks, drink some beers, etc., etc.?
All of those things happen.
I stayed home with Jill, so sort of. But like that's a person.
As far as I know, that's true.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sort of glad I wasn't in a social setting because a lot of attention needed to be paid to the game, and I paid as much as I could.
Yeah, if you went to that guy, got your little after midnight meal at the Ever Ready Diner this week, he'd have nothing to say about your credit card.
Yep. You're like, remember me? Slam it down on the counter.
Where are your Giants now?
Yeah. At home. They're at home.
Yeah, I watched the game. I drank beer. I missed So right before the Super Bowl started, I follow and listen to many of one of the creators of Cards Against Humanity's podcast. I follow him on Twitter. He's on the one I recommended last week, 2 by Friday, and also the one with Patrick Rothfuss. And he tweeted, "We might have bought a Super Bowl ad." So the entire time I was most looking forward to trying to figure out which ad was the Cards Against Humanity ad, but I didn't realize he was referring to the past tense. He had bought an ad that came on before the Super Bowl, and it was just 30 seconds of a potato with the word advertisement written on it. But I missed it. And I can't find it online. I Googled for it.
That's really funny.
Did
I give those guys.
did
They
either
do
of
such
you
good
see it?
stunts. No, I didn't.
No.
I wasn't paying too close attention to the pregame, but that's really funny.
It's delightful.
I don't like that.
Was there any Super Bowl technology stuff that happened?
There
There's the-
was.
Intel drones.
Yeah, that was crazy. I thought they just CGI'd those onto the
That's what I
sky or
thought.
something.
That's what I thought. I'm like,
Like, that
would
would've
have
been
green
so much
screen or
cheaper.
some shit. Like, no, they're drones. What a waste. And that was pre-recorded,
it's
you know. That wasn't
more
live
terrifying.
because legally the FAA doesn't allow any planes within that any flying devices that close to the
Oh.
Super Bowl. So that bit with her on the roof was pre-recorded.
So it kind of was bullshit.
Yeah.
Was she like? So she wasn't on the roof, or just the drones weren't on the
No,
roof?
she
Where,
was. She was on the roof. She didn't sing on the roof. The singing was pre-recorded, and her performing on the roof with the drones was pre-recorded. But they were flying. Although I don't know.
I thought there was like a zoomed out view of the drones at one point from like the blimp thing.
That might have been. So my only thing I don't know is if the drone shot was done on the roof of the stadium weeks before the game, and that might have been the shot they were using. That I don't know, but I do know it was pre-recorded. She was on the roof. She didn't sing up there. It cut to live was when she came down. But the drones and her singing was not live. That was pre-recorded because legally they can't fly the drones during the Super Bowl.
I mean, I get that, but I feel really misled. So she didn't like dive off the roof like she did in that.
And did you notice how it took them a long time to cut away from her diving to her coming down? Yeah, that's because it was.
I did. Yeah.
It was faked. Yeah. Yeah, isn't that terrible?
God, this is
But she
like
might have-
worse than the moon landing.
Really pulled one over on us on that one, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know why. Well, I guess it makes sense. Yeah, they don't want stuff flying around there in the airspace around for security reasons. I get that. But the drones were
Yeah,
real, and
that
they were
makes
really,
sense.
really programmed to fly around the Intel drones. They've done other demonstrations. I mean, that was real.
I thought they were going to turn into the Pepsi logo because they were the same. It was
They
like
did
the
at one
blue and
point.
red.
I think right
Oh,
at the
did they?
end of the performance, like right after, like, and this has been the Pepsi Zero Sugar halftime, and then they formed the Pepsi logo.
Yeah. Now, so I have another question
That's
about
what
that.
I was. That's what I. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Like,
That's what I
what
was
is Pepsi Zero Sugar? Like, is that a Pepsi product? Like a new Pepsi thing, or like, were they just saying like that the halftime sponsored by Pepsi but without sugar? I
Well,
don't
Pepsi
understand.
was fighting with sugar, and we're like, we're sponsoring. We want to make sure sugar had nothing to do with this.
right.
I'm gonna Google it. No, Pepsi Zero Sugar is a soda product that they sell. But what I don't know is that they used to sell the difference between this and Pepsi. Oh, so it used to be Pepsi. Remember Pepsi Max? It used to be Pepsi Max, and they changed the name. It's a 0-calorie, sugar-free cola sweetened with how do you say that? Aspartame? That's not right. The Nutracet, that fake sugar they put in everything.
Aspartame, is that the one?
Aspartame?
I don't know. I've never seen it spelled. So
Aspartame?
aspartame.
Something like
Tame?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it used to be Pepsi Max, and they rebranded it.
Who knew?
So go. I could just imagine Colby going in to a restaurant. He sits down. So, sir, what would you like to drink? Can I have a Coke? Pepsi Zero Sugar, okay? No,
It's not at all.
not even close.
Madness.
It was.
I enjoyed Lady Gaga though. I was half expecting Beyonce to come out when they started when she started doing Telephone. I was like, well, obviously Beyonce is gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
Like that wasn't a great song. Beyonce was just in it, but she didn't. I was a little disappointed about that.
Yeah, no guest stars at all, which was, I think, a little... Because it seems like the last couple Super Bowls, they always brought in at least someone else. This was all Gaga all the time. Even...
I'm Goo Goo for Gaga Puffs. That was a 30 Rock joke.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I was fine with... I was getting tired. Last year was ridiculous with the guest artists. It was too much. It was like, who even was it originally? I thought it was Bruno Mars.
Last year was weird.
It was Coldplay. I mean, they did like one song.
Right. I feel like the problem with Coldplay is they're boring.
Okay. Well,
It's not like... I'm not saying I don't like Coldplay's music, but like a whole Super Bowl show with just Coldplay, it's like...
Well, there was I don't know if it was a petition or just a rumor going around. People wanted Adele to do the halftime show this year, and I'm like, I love Adele. Adele's a great singer, wonderful performer. Not really halftime material. A little bit of a bummer.
Even worse than Coldplay.
Yeah. So I get that.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed Lady Gaga though. I mean, I always enjoy Lady Gaga.
I was so depressed about the game, I didn't get much enjoyment out of it. If I'm being honest, I was despondent.
Do you think it was all long con? Because this is what I was thinking, and I don't know enough about football to really understand. Not a con, but like they were playing the long game. It might be riskier. The Falcons are clearly a good team. It might be riskier to have kept it close. And if you can tie it up, and then the game ends, you seem to be in a really fucking advantageous position come overtime. I was like, wait, how could this possibly be how this works? The team that just tied it up has advantage going into overtime?
Based on a coin flip.
Once? Oh, that's right. There was a coin flip. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the coin flip cast doubt on my theory here, but I thought some of the way that went down at the end was awfully convenient.
Basically, what you're saying is Bill Belichick hustled the Atlanta Falcons.
Well, no, he knew that he had some insight into their psychology, knowing that if it was actually a close game, they might play harder, and then he could spring it on them at the end.
I think...
this is not a serious... This is like 30% serious.
Well, that's like I had a coworker who I was talking to, and he said, I said, oh, what are you doing for the game? He said, I'm watching it. And I said, he said his wife wouldn't watch it because she thinks all the games are rigged. Like wrestling, she thinks they're all scripted. And he goes, yeah, so she won't watch the games. And I said, well, that means she should watch the games. That means the games are going to be really exciting. Because if they're scripting them, it's entertainment. It's a great reason to watch the games because it's going to be thrilling. And maybe she's right. Maybe it is scripted. I couldn't have scripted a better game than that.
Yeah, and in some games, so what I'm getting at is like multi-game conditioning, where and this isn't exactly what I'm proposing happened here, but where you play an opponent many times and you play one way, and then when it really matters, you play a different way, and you condition them to expect you to behave a certain ways under certain conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I feel like in general, one of the things that Patriots are great at is like doing that in a game. Like they come out after halftime and like do different stuff, which is always fun to see. I don't necessarily think that happened this time. I almost think they just like Atlanta just got tired. Like they played hard the first half.
Well, what was it? Statistically, this was in the postseason. This was the greatest differential between the offenses, how many plays they ran. Patriots ran a record number of offensive plays. It was like 93 offensive plays they ran, more than any other team in postseason history.
Wow.
They were on the field for like way more than the Atlanta offense. So, yeah, they were tired, especially by overtime.
Indeed. It is.
So.
I thought when they were flipping the coin, it reminded me of this must have been like last year or something when the Patriots went into were in overtime and they won the coin toss, but the whoever was calling it said the wrong thing, like because the Patriots always defer at the beginning of the game. He's like, "Oh, we'll defer," just like reflexively, and they gave the other team the ball and ended up losing because they got a touchdown right away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was wondering if they were going to roll George Bush out again to flip that coin, but apparently not.
He was back home asleep.
Would have delayed the 24 Legacy preview. But,
oh,
yeah.
no.
Jesus. How many commercials could they possibly have for 24, which has been on since 2001, by the way?
That's
it's America's Doctor Who.
That's the great thing about having a Super Bowl.
I've never watched a single episode.
You haven't watched 24?
You didn't watch
any?
No,
not once.
Oh,
no, like at all?
That's a fun one. But I will say that is I don't want to get too deep. No, it is honestly. It's a good show. I don't want to get too deep on 24, but it is a horrifically bad show to binge. Like it really most because back then obviously you didn't have streaming, so you couldn't binge it. Go back now and do it. It's terrible because the show moves so fast that you get whiplash because in about 5 or 6 hour long episodes you're in a completely different place than you were, but you don't realize it when it's every week because it feels slower. When you binge it, you're like, holy shit, weren't you just taking apart a nuclear bomb, and then all of a sudden you're like undercover in a drug ring? Like, and of course it's real time, so it's like 5 hours of your life later. It's like, slow down. Oh my God. Not a great binge show.
Madness.
It is, but it's bad.
Well,
so.
Speaking of good binge shows, the Stranger Things trailer, I think that was the coolest commercial because it started as something else, but as soon as it started, I was like, it would be cool as if this was a Stranger Things commercial, and then it was. Oh man, that was a great trailer.
I just give Netflix credit.
Sean's like,
no, I'm gonna watch Stranger Things eventually. Of course, I say that there are a long list of shows I'll never get around to watching. Hopefully, Stranger Things is one of them. But I give Netflix credit. I mean, how ballsy is it to spend, $4 or $5 million for that commercial for a show that doesn't drop until Halloween? Now, I know people can go watch season 1, but still, that's pretty ballsy. I loved it.
Yeah.
So that,
do we know? Does Netflix tell you like how successful their shows were relative to one another? Do we know how successful Stranger Things was? Sometimes
they do. I don't know if they specifically did for Stranger Things. And you're right, Dan. Usually it's comparative. They'll say it's our most streamed ever or whatever.
Right.
I don't know if they did. It wouldn't have surprised me. But then again, what I don't understand is so they have the Marvel the Defenders, which is where they get Daredevil and Jessica Jones and all those guys together for their shared series, is dropping I think in March or April. I don't know why they wouldn't promote that. That's a little weird to me, but people seemed excited about it. So,
well, maybe Stranger Things did pretty well, and they're trying to get
that's what I'm wondering.
Hooked.
Well, and strike the iron while it's hot, right? Well, the buzz is still lingering for Stranger Things.
Yeah, it also seemed like Stranger Things hit kind of late because it came out in July, but it didn't feel like people really were watching it until September or so.
Well, they didn't promote it, right? It was all word of mouth kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is, and we were talking about this before we started, Boston bringing home another championship to New England, and I was quizzing these guys on the most winningest sports city in America. Did you guys have a guess?
I mean, I think the problem is I don't know very much about sports, like beyond
that could be a problem.
What happens in my neighborhood.
Neither do I. I know which one would be among the least winningest.
And what would that
Columbus, Ohio, because it has no sports teams. It is the largest American city with no sports teams.
Dan, depends on how you define a sports team. The Columbus Crew have actually won an MLS championship. Now, it's soccer.
Columbus Crew?
Yeah.
I would count that.
They have won. No, according to this chart, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams that or 10 cities that have never won a championship in any of the major sports, but that have a team in at least one of those cities, including Charlotte, Jacksonville, Memphis, Nashville, Oklahoma City, Orlando, Sacramento.
I thought the Hornets were like a good basketball team in the 90s.
They were, but they never won a championship.
Oh, wow.
They were just always a contender. But you got to remember, in the 90s, too, the Bulls won all the championships. So,
Yeah.
Not a good time to play in the NBA, unless you were on the Bulls.
Right.
No, you'll be happy to know the number 1 ranked city for champion with 54 overall championships. 35 of those in baseball. Will not surprise you to learn it's New York City. Boston is number 2. That was number 37 for Boston. Most of those in basketball, actually 17 for the Celtics. In third place, Chicago with 30. Fourth place, Chicago with 25. But we talked about on the show, I don't think it's fair because New York City.
You said Chicago twice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Los Angeles is number 4.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you know how many? Do you know how many sports teams New York City has?
Like 13 or something.
Not a bad guess. 11.
Oh,
Jeez.
2 football,
We
2
have
baseball,
two
2 basketball,
it's
3
soccer,
hockey,
I think.
and 2
3
soccer.
hockey.
Yeah, because the Islanders now play out of Brooklyn, so they consider them New York City.
Oh my gosh.
Plus the Rangers and the Devils. So what I did is I quickly, before we went on, I did the math. If you divide, so like the number of average championships per team, Boston is number 1 with 7. And then New York City, Chicago, and LA are right about tied for second. So there you go. A little sports trivia for you.
Cool. See, I had no idea. I didn't know the Celtics were so good. I guess maybe like that's a thing I've heard, but I don't follow basketball.
Well, they went through, of course, Larry Bird famously. They went through many rounds where they were just dominant in the sport. Really one of the most dominant. Kind of like how the Steelers were dominant for a long time in the NFL. Kind of the same way. There's a reason why they call Boston Title Town, because they win all the titles. Except New York City, which wins more technically. But that's beside the point. And I'm just being honest, just for full disclosure.
That's a very New York-Boston dynamic there.
Exactly. Hey, look, we love
New York sucks.
Hey, okay, all right. Let's just say Houston hasn't won a lot of championships. Just put it that way. Okay.
Oh, I guess the Texans are a pretty new team. Did the Oilers ever win a Super Bowl?
They did.
After the famous mathematician?
No, it's named after like oil. Like.
I know.
Oh. Oh yeah. Is that the one isn't it spelled weird?
EULER. Yeah.
You guys are weird. No, the Houston Rockets actually won 2 NBA championships. The Oilers won 2 AFL championships pre-merger. And the Houston Dynamo, the soccer team, has won 2 MLS Cups. So
cool.
There you go. Trivia for you, but now we've exhausted our time on sports, and we've got to move on to some technology. I guess that's why we're here.
Time on sports for the year.
Yeah, I was about to say 2017, no more sports.
Oh, speaking of things that were advertised far out, though, the Winter Olympics, there was an ad for that.
Was there?
And I was like, yes. And I was like, oh my god, what? Weren't these Summer Olympics just like last year? And yes. They were. They're not until 2018.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Where are they?
But that was from NBC, so like, or whatever the host network was. So does the host network have to pay for ads on the Super Bowl? I'm guessing no. I'm guessing they can eat the cost of not selling that ad slot however often they want.
Yeah, that's why 24 got so many ads, because it was airing on Fox. They get a certain ad inventory as the broadcasters of the game. Colby, I think it's in South Korea.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That's cool. I love the Winter Olympics. I'll never forget freshman year, Sean and I watched a bunch of curling during the Winter Olympics.
Oh my god, that was like the first time they really went nuts with the streaming, and we're like, you can watch every curling match. This is great. Yeah, that was fun. That was, I'm a sucker for the Olympics, so that's something to look forward to.
Now, Sean, this seems like one of the few television events or like events that you would have and correct me if I'm wrong, zero reason to be streaming multiple things during it. Did you have multiple streams of the Super Bowl going?
You can, and I know Fox had an app where you get like different camera angles, and there were a few gimmicky things going on. I had a Twitter feed going, but other than that, no, this was really pretty singular. You really want to. And the other thing too is, I'm telling you, if the Patriots hadn't been playing, I probably would have gone a little more nuts. But I really wanted to focus on the game. If I didn't care about the outcome, I would have gone a little crazier. Although I will say, we're going to continue to get off topic, but I was I did a lot of cooking before the game. It involves my pick this week. And made all kinds of stuff in the kitchen. But I also took a nice big slice out of my finger. I don't know if you can see
Yeah.
that nice cut right there. And the reason, and I learned this right before we did the show, is that I brought a prop. So you see this very shiny knife here that I'm holding up in my hands? I've been using it as a bread knife, and it works fantastically as a bread knife. Best bread knife I've ever owned. It slices through bread like you wouldn't believe. It also slices through human flesh quite well. The problem is, I learned this is actually a carving knife for meats. That's why it's so sharp. You're not supposed to use it to cut bread.
Wow.
It's like...
Wow.
I always thought the thing with the little divots in it was a fancy bread knife, too.
No, it's to actually collect meat juices, believe it or not, as you're cutting through. I don't know how that works, but apparently it saves the juices from being lost in your meat. But I was cutting a roll in my hand like a moron towards my finger, and of course it goes right through the bread because it's sharp as hell, and I just cut a nice big slice of my finger. So anyway, I felt like and this was like 30 minutes before kickoff. All my food was done and ready. It was like
bleeding
the last
everywhere.
thing. I felt like and I was like, well, first I was like, fuck. I was so mad. I was so upset. Anyway, little side story. I couldn't resist. I had the prop, so I had to tell it. Okay, enough of my injuries.
Wait, I have
Yes.
one more question.
Please do.
Did you catch my Mad Max joke on Twitter?
I did catch it. Yes.
The halftime show is basically Mad Max the musical, and that was the joke.
And it was great. Actually, aren't they actually doing a Mad Max the musical?
Oh God, I hope so.
I think I read that somewhere.
I would be all over that. Oh man, well, but they basically had the guitar guy with the flamethrower, and it was made out of like that tower thing was made out of sheet metal. There was like people suspended from things. There was fire everywhere. It was very post-apocalyptic and fitting for the times.
Well, we basically are post-apocalyptic, so.
Oh, here's I can keep getting us off topic if you want.
No, I'm not gonna stop you.
Here's a question. I stole this from my pick last week. In our inevitable post-apocalyptic society, assuming that we all survive, long enough, we go and we all individually try to get into like some compounds, presumably like some humans get together, they build these walls, they start farming things, and you show up at the gates and you want to get in so you can get food and safety and be able to sleep at night. What would you tell this society you have to offer them such that they would let you in the gate? What would be your selling point in a post-apocalyptic society?
That's so easy. But would you believe I've actually thought about this?
I'm
actually
surprised.
I know. I'd be surprised too. I would have absolutely nothing to offer. Honestly, I wouldn't. I would ask politely.
When did you start thinking about this?
I have a coworker of mine who is his family. One of his family's many hobbies is planning for the apocalypse, and like they keep batteries in one of those Faraday cages in case an EMP goes off. Like they really go all out. And they were talking like, oh yeah, we know how to do all this stuff, and we have a plan of what's going to happen. And I'm like, if that happened, I have no practical life skills. Like I cut my finger a little bit, and I like panicked and didn't know what to do. It took me about 10 minutes to figure out to put a Band-Aid on it. I am not built for the apocalypse. No real world skills. Forget about it. So
okay.
I feel like I had planned for certain events in which I would just like go to my parents' house, and I could either get there, like Jill and I could either get there by car or by bike if necessary. But like that's like only a subset of apocalyptic events that would work out for. Like other ones, maybe going outside wouldn't be super great. I think I don't know. I haven't done as much planning as your neighbors. I think for sure. Maybe I should get like a stash of seeds or something. So when I get to this place,
Ooh,
There you go. Be prepared.
seeds like
that's a good idea.
life. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good idea.
Maybe I could make them laugh. Maybe that would be my offer.
Like
Be
be a jester.
yes, I will entertain you for food and shelter. Have you heard of Don't Panic? I used to host it before the world ended.
Yeah. I was a podcast host back when the internet existed.
I think right away they'd say no thank
for
you.
a podcast that
I would be
no
shut
one
down
watched.
immediately. Be like, did you say podcast? Get in line.
I feel like you might have an advantage in that like podcasts are still not like incredibly popular, so you could swing it like maybe no one's heard of Don't Panic, but like you could
Oh yeah,
if
be
you
like, it was
if you
huge
if you
before
give them the
world
hard
ended.
sell, yeah.
Be like, oh, we were big in Korea. I know you don't know much about Korea. Trust me, we were big.
And then like later on when you make a close friend or something to advance the plot, you can tell them your dark secret is like your podcast wasn't famous at all.
Be like, I made it all up. Nobody ever listened.
Right.
All right.
How it was. Dan, what would you bring to what skills would you bring to this?
I see. I keep getting hung up on the fact that all of the skills that I have many not useful skills, but the skills that I do have, like, I feel like I'd be kind of prepared to survive outside in a post-apocalyptic environment, like, to make shelter and find food if it exists and make fires and stuff like that, like direction finding. But that stuff isn't helpful to a society behind walls. They don't need someone who can survive. I'm not like a particularly good soldier. Maybe like a forager. That's like the best I could come up with.
Not bad.
Yeah.
A scout.
Ooh, what about a management consultant? I could do that. Be like, I don't think your haphazard form of government you formed within these walls is really maximized for synergy.
Let me interview all of the people who live in your compound,
And I'll put together a report.
Yep, a PowerPoint. You do have power, right, for the PowerPoint?
Yes, I'll point at who's wrong, and you can execute them in the town square. We're so useless. There's a reason we do this and not, actual useful things.
Let me tell you about Agile.
It's an acronym.
Let me tell you about the Toyota method.
Oh, God.
Wait.
I'm having like PTSD flashbacks here.
Is Agile an acronym or was that a joke?
No, that was a joke.
Oh, okay.
It's not an acronym, and it was a joke.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Just checking. For a second,
But it could be.
I would, if someone told me it was and gave me a plausible acronym, I would believe it.
Yeah. G, good
Aggressive.
teamwork.
General integration.
Linguistic empathy. Agile. Remember it. It's what this
How
business
could I
thrives
forget?
on.
You can't stop synergy. It's bigger than both of us.
Thank you. Dan just full of the 30 Rock quotes today.
Yep.
We need to have a 30 Rock quote off
That's
sometime.
one of my favorites.
The problem
I
is,
feel like.
No, go ahead.
Go for it. Oh, a 30 Rock trivia challenge. I think I am especially well equipped. I think I could do well.
I think I could do well. I think Jill would also be fantastic at that.
This might be a thing. I see. The problem is, Dan, you do Jack Donaghy pretty well. I do a lot of the Tracy Jordan quotes, which are some of my, I want to hold a mirror up to society and then win world record for biggest mirror. I can't do the impression.
Gaga for what was it? Caca for Cuckoo Puffs. That was a Tracy Jordan quote.
It was. It was. That show was so. I could just watch that a million times over. Oh boy. All right.
So, since the world hasn't ended yet, Do we have technology news to talk about?
We do. We have a few here. I don't. We can talk about. We got the Snapchat IPO. We got the sneaky things Vizio's up to. Facebook TV.
Let's talk about the Vizio thing. I feel like this sort of flew under the radar.
It did. Sometimes I just skip stories and I don't know why. I kind of go off instinct, and then you guys will pull it up and be like, "Man, I don't know why I didn't put that in the rundown," because it is a really great story. So let me break it down for you folks. And the FTC did a really great rundown.
Yeah, this article read like a news article.
It's so well written.
And it was like, the report alleges that... It's interesting.
It's one of the most understandable things I've read in a while. So I'm almost going to read it verbatim. Here we go. Starting in 2014, Vizio made TVs. Vizio, the television manufacturer, owned now by, Laiko, the Chinese company. Vizio made TVs that automatically tracked what consumers were watching and transmitted that data back to its servers. Vizio even retrofitted older models by installing its tracking software remotely. All of this was allegedly done without clearly telling consumers or getting their consent. On a second-by-second basis, Vizio collected a selection of pixels on the screen that it matched to a database of TV, movies, and commercial content. What's more, Vizio identified viewing data from cable or broadband service providers, set-top boxes, streaming devices, DVD players, and over-the-air broadcasts. They had as many as 100 billion data points each day for millions of TVs. Now, right away, you would say, gee, Sean, that sounds kind of creepy. It gets worse, because then they turn that data into cash by selling it to advertisers and others. Not only did they sell summary information, they got specific. They provided IP addresses to data aggregators who then matched those IP addresses with an individual consumer or household. They allowed a host of personal details, including sex, age, income, marital status, household size, education, and home ownership, to be correlated with your IP address. And Vizio permitted companies they sold the data to track and target consumers across devices. Vizio put the functionality behind a setting called Smart Interactivity, but the FTC says that was a generic way of describing the feature. Things like enables program offers and suggestions. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. And didn't give consumers a necessary heads up to know that Vizio was tracking their TV's every picture. Because of this, Vizio settled a case with the FTC to stop the tracking, prominently disclose its TV collection practices, and to get consumers' express consent before collecting and sharing viewing information. In addition, they must delete most of the data it has already collected and put in a privacy program that evaluates Vizio's practices and its partners. It also includes a $1.5 million payment to the FTC and a $2.2 million settlement for the state of New Jersey, who sued them as well. Gentlemen, this is really creepy.
Yeah. And I have lots of questions about this. So, first, if you don't connect your TV to the internet, this isn't happening, right?
Correct.
Second,
Safe to say. Yeah.
This is so much work. It's like what they did was a lot of work. So it's clearly not accidental, which I feel like a lot of times these companies can sort of pass that off as, oops, we didn't mean to be sending over like what HDMI port you were on to our servers. It was just like a diagnostic feature. But this is like analyzing the pixels on the screen. That's like crazy. And how long did it take for someone to notice this? Nerds buy stuff, and sometimes nerds buy TVs, and people who are even nerdier than Colby or I will often look at their network and see what's being transmitted because they're control freaks and they want to see every single... This would have been so obvious, I imagine.
Well, I know maybe not on the show, but I know I've read that other TV manufacturers have gotten in trouble doing similar things. Was it Samsung when they first started putting cameras and stuff in the TVs? It was questionable with their privacy. It's not that they were collecting it; it's just that like in their fine print they said they could, and it worried people that they might.
That's right.
But Dan, I think you're right that it's interesting, this difference between. Again, I think if someone were looking at the traffic coming off the TV, I think I would expect my TV to send some amount of data back to some server somewhere, right? I don't think that's necessarily surprising. I think the surprising thing is that, A, they matched it up to know what you were watching, right? It's not like Dan turned on his TV. He then turned off his TV 20 minutes later. Like, that's not what they sent. They sent, like, individual color pixels to match to content. Then They matched it to your IP address, and then they sold that to advertisers who were allowed to match that with Dan Miller. That's kind of like the logical step, and I think that's the part that it's hard for consumers to know. That even if I knew my TV viewing habits were sent to Vizio, if I knew they were using it anonymously in aggregate to monitor TV ratings, I wouldn't be too beat up about it. But
but for what purpose could they possibly be doing that?
TV ratings. People pay Nielsen big money, and Nielsen, by the way, until a few years ago, was still using paper diaries. People would write down what they watched at each hour. And now it's a little more digital, but this would be a great way to do it automatically, and to get incredibly accurate TV rating. Advertisers would pay big money for that. You know? And if I knew if I truly knew they were doing it genuinely anonymously, in aggregate, no way to connect it to what I was watching, I assume my set-top box is already doing that. To be honest with you, maybe it's not, but it wouldn't surprise me. But it's just a weird part that they were taking it and matching it to me as an individual and then selling it to advertisers, and had no rules around what the advertisers could do in connecting it with my personal details. And that they try to pass it off as this smart interactivity bullshit. Although people by now should know, whenever a company promises you personalized content, you're like, ads. It's ads.
It's always ads.
And when I first read this headline, I thought it was the TVs that could do like the Skype calls, because the headlines were like Vizio's watching what you watch. I thought they meant literally, like the camera was always on, recording you in front of your TV.
I feel like now that this happened, though, the next thing that happened is going to be that. Like, that your TV is literally, like, eye-tracking you to see what you're looking at.
Well, they all
have
microphones in them, yeah.
If this was disclosed, so say, here's a question. What if they did, like, the Kindle thing, where they said, Sean, you can have this, like, 65-inch TV, or we can take off 25% off, but it's going to track everything you do, and we're going to sell it to advertisers.
Again, is it tied to me as an individual? Will it say Sean Jennings watched 18 hours of House Hunters last week?
Yes.
No, then I probably wouldn't do that. If it was an anonymous data aggregate, then yeah, I wouldn't really care.
Okay.
Now, if they gave me the TV for free,
it'd have to be free.
I mean,
like not 50% off.
It'd have to be a real good bargain. But I don't fully know how comfortable I would be with. Now, so for example, right, let's say they took my data, didn't sell it to any third party. Vizio was the only people who kept it, but they used it to serve me ads on the TV like the Kindle does, like in the bottom like ticker of the screen all the time are ads running. I'd need a free TV for that, but I would do that.
For a free TV.
But again, the weird thing is it is sold to these third party. Like, I know Vizio as a company. I don't know who these third parties are. Is it like, Joe's Ad House and there's no security and no one gives a shit and they know all this weird shit about me? Like, that bugs me. Joe's Ad Shack, where they ads by the bucket. It's just that part is very weird. And this coming from a guy who owns a Vizio TV, so they already know everything about me.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't remember ever getting asked about smart interactivity.
Yeah, no, and mine is a smart TV. I've never hooked it up.
Well,
I don't know if I got it after 2014 though. I got it whenever Colby visited New York. That's
they said, Vizio retrofitted older models by installing the software remotely. So if yours has had a software update, it's possible.
It hasn't had a software update because I've never connected it to the internet.
There you go. Then you're probably okay. But then you also have to think, like, does Roku track stuff you watch? Like, I know we don't think about these things, but do we really know what does and does not? No one reads those terms of service agreements.
No.
So it's
and if they're smart, their terms of service agreements are as broad as possible.
Sure.
Right. That's what I was gonna say. Like, regardless of what they're doing or not, they want to cover all the things they might ever want to do.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one of the big issues with Vizio in this complaint, was that it wasn't necessarily that they were collecting the data. It's that, A, they were reselling it without proper safeguards in place to keep it semi-anonymous, not tying it to an individual with a name. And B, the fact that they called it smart interactivity and misled consumers with the name and description. That was really where they broke the law, is if they had just said, this is a personalized tracking feature and we may sell, like the cookie warnings that the EU required on all websites a few years ago that say, hey, look, these are cookies, this is what they're for, our website has them, is that okay? If they had just done that, they probably wouldn't have had to have paid these fines.
Do they not require those anymore?
The cookie things?
Yeah.
I know that there was a law going through to take that, to repeal that. I don't know if it ever passed in the EU, because I got to the point where most people found it annoying and no one ended up caring. So I know they were working on it. I don't know if it went through.
Interesting.
So just keep in mind, don't watch anything you don't want Big Brother knowing you're watching on your Vizio Smart TV. Enough said. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Let's chug on. If you can believe it, we have time for one more story. Spent a lot of time.
It's got to be the Snapchat IPO.
It's got to be. Well, you know us. Welcome to the Financial Analysis Minute with Sean, Colby, and Dan. We're your not financial experts here to talk to you about the stock market. Yes, that's right. Snapchat is going public. Of course, the company name being Snap, so I will refer to them as Snap, is filed their public offering this week with the ticker symbol of Snap. Unsurprisingly, they hope to raise $3 billion. The IPO would value the company at above $20 billion. Now, some quick fun facts. When you go ahead and declare for your public offering, you have to disclose a lot of financial information. So we know a lot more about Snapchat now than we used to. Here are some fun facts. Snapchat's revenue has exploded, $58 million in 2015, up to $404 million in 2016. Strong revenue growth. However, losses swelled. In 2016, they lost $514 million. Lost it. Go on.
To what?
To costs outstretching revenue.
So this is so is that $500 million or whatever, like however much they lost plus whatever they made, and like that's the leftover, or like they lost $500 million and like made $400 million, so in it evens out at like $100 million. Do you know what I'm saying?
Kind of. So if I understand it, again, financial experts here. If you know how to decode this information, give us a call, 508-644-TECH. No, if I understand it correctly, it's you take, very simply, revenue minus expenses equals negative 514. Now, of course, they got a lot of, fund. That's why you keep getting funding rounds to keep paying that off.
Right. You keep taking you get a new credit card to pay off your old credit card.
Yes.
And then like in a couple of months, you get another credit card to pay off the second credit card.
And then you take out a personal loan to pay that credit card. Yeah, no.
On and so forth.
Financial 101. Now, interestingly enough, Twitter, when they went public, also was losing money. Facebook was profitable when they went public. Let's see. Other things we learned. The filing says the average user opens the app 18 times a day and spends 25 to 30 minutes with it.
Wow.
I don't even open the app 15 to 20 times a month.
Well, you're not average, Dan. We know that.
Yeah.
I think I open the app 3 or 4 times a week, maybe. Like two or three of those times are to look at snaps I got, and the rest of them are just to mess around with the stupid filter things on the when I'm bored.
And you don't send them to anyone?
No. Sometimes I send one, but
and you know how bummed Snapchat is because they're like, we don't get any ad revenue for that, you fool. Right. I open it every day. You guys are missing out on all the fun.
I guess so. See, I bet they do get ad revenue for that though, because some of those like the face recognition things are like sponsored. Sure. Yeah.
Well, they are 400 million in revenue. I'm assuming most of that from ads. I don't have the breakdown here. But one other interesting piece of fun fact here is daily active users is actually gone flat. It grew by 7% in up to June 2016. And between June and September, when, interestingly enough, Instagram launched Instagram stories, growth was flat for that quarter between June and September. Very dangerous for an app like Snapchat, whose model requires constant user growth. Overall, it's a pretty sketchy IPO in a lot of ways. One last fun fact, the co-founders of Snapchat will retain a very large chunk of the stock and nearly all of the voting stock. Each co-founder, it's believed, will own about $3.5 billion worth of Snapchat stock after it goes public.
That's 3.5 Instagrams per person.
I mean, that's not too bad for an app you invented to send naked pictures to people that would delete themselves. So,
I mean, people love naked pictures, so.
But not enough to keep them forever.
No.
Yeah, I don't know what there is to think about this. I mean, I'm not buying any Snapchat stock, that's for sure. I would say it's from my perspective, it's more of a Twitter stock than it is a Facebook stock, and by that I mean more of a not crash and burn, but more of a disappointment than a big stock success. That's to say, I'm not saying they're going out of business.
Yeah. No, it seems like I think we talked about this
What
when
about
Twitter
spectacles,
IPO'd.
though? Sorry.
Spectacles are cool. They said in the filing they want to sell them a lot more widely than they are now. I think it's the problem is they just need the problem when you lose $500 million isn't that you lose $500 million, is that you're spending so much money that you lose $500 million. Like, where?
I'm gonna tell that to my bank. He's like, listen. The problem is not that I lost $500 million. The problem is that I spent $500 million, and really, that's your problem, not mine.
There you go, Dan. Again, very good at finances. No, it's just that they're spending too much goddamn money, and the problem is they need such user growth to make up that gap that it's really dangerous. So maybe you're right. Maybe selling hardware is one way to increase revenue to meet those losses. The problem is you have to spend a lot of money to develop hardware and to launch hardware. You know, there's a reason why Google gets to do fun things. It's because they make a shit ton of money on advertising. Facebook, same way. Snapchat's not quite there. Maybe they'll get there. That was one of the big stumbles for Twitter. They never really got their ad game together that well, so they couldn't drive as much revenue as they would have liked. Of course, their users were also down. What was it? Facebook in their earnings said they now have about 2 billion people who log into Facebook each day on average. If Snapchat had those kind of numbers, I bet they would be wildly profitable, but they're not quite there.
Indeed.
I
don't think they're not as accessible as Facebook is.
Well,
like everybody
nobody
knows
is, to
how
be
use
fair.
Yeah.
I mean, how many? Let me quiz you guys quickly here. How many daily active users do you think Snapchat has? Now, again, I quoted that. Twitter, I think, is... Oh, geez, I don't know. I'm just trying... 300 million, maybe, was the last figure?
I don't know, like 100 million.
143 million, which is a lot, but it's not that much.
Yeah. I did notice Snapchat redesigned their app recently, like sort of the navigation, and it like almost makes sense the way things go. Like they're still in ridiculous places, but at least you can see the connections between them. Sean disagrees.
I was thinking the other day, Snapchat for me is like one of the worst designed apps on the planet. The icons are unclear, the menus are unclear, the actions are it's just so
they definitely doubled down on what Snapchat has always been, but at least they made it like sort of fit together, I guess. That's what I noticed.
The last update, it kind of like dipped and then came back up a little bit. I agree there was some improvement, but still. And the other problem too is it's really, the whole thing about Snapchat that was great is it opens right to the camera, right? They were one of the first apps to do that. And it was really fast because it opened right to the camera and you could take a picture. It's so like slow to open. Maybe I just have an old phone. But it's just because it's got so much crap in it that, I don't know. It's just too busy.
I noticed the other day that if you double tap on the picture, like when you're in the camera mode, it flips the camera around, which I thought was cool. I accidentally did that.
Do you know how to zoom when you're taking a picture?
No.
If you
I
swipe
assume
your
pinch to zoom.
Well, I think you can, but another thing you can do is because if you're holding it with one hand, like a selfie or something, you can use your thumb, and if you slide it up and down the side of the screen, it will zoom for you. Like, it's all that weird stuff. Like, they don't tell anybody. Like, why are you hiding this, Snapchat? I don't.
Huh.
It's very odd.
I don't know.
But anyway, we'll keep an eye on this story as it progresses. When they actually do go live, we'll see how the stock does. But it'll be interesting. Not going to be the cornerstone of my portfolio.
No.
Nope. I'm still full up on Friendster stock.
Oh yeah.
Didn't do too well.
Pets.com.
But yeah, my pet off the charts. My Netscape stock. Just couldn't let it go. All right, we're gonna move on to picks. But before I do that, I want to quickly remind everybody that before I forget, because I was going to do it at the top of the show, I should have done when we were talking about the Super Bowl. Up for debate this week, taping Thursday. We're going to follow up on our Super Bowl prop bets. Matt and I bet on all kinds of stuff throughout the show. It was a lot of fun, and throughout the game, I was following along, tweeting live at Up for Debate TV on Twitter. And we're going to have the results. We're going to have the score. We're going to recap the game, our thoughts on the game and Lady Gaga and the commercials. And we're going to tell you who won the Prop Bet Challenge. It's publishing probably Thursday or Friday this week, but you can go to upfordebate.tv/subscribe, find out how to subscribe, and then you get the episode when we publish it. So, little mini tease there for you. Let's move on to picks here. And I am going to have Dan go first, because Dan never gets to go first. And I don't think that's right.
All right. So another podcast I started listening to recently. It's called. What is it called? What did I put in there? How I built this.
Yes.
How I built this. It's one of those, standard NPR podcasts. I don't know who specifically does it, but the premise is they interview kind of super famous people, usually business people, but sometimes designers or people you've definitely heard of, and talk about like how they got here and what their failures were. Which is I found the interviews like really interesting, especially for half hour. They're usually like half hour to 45 minutes. A lot of interviews like that, you're gonna get like a sort of cookie cutter interview with like the Richard Branson one, for instance. Was super interesting, and I imagine that he's been interviewed about his success many times, but this one felt super. It felt like he was really interested, like they were asking interesting questions. He was telling interesting stories. It's just cool to see that the most successful people in the world had really awful failures too, and their path to their success was not at all linear. So check out How I Built This in your favorite podcasting app. As with all NPR shows, super super well produced.
Yeah, they have some really like good companies and people. I was looking through the list of the past episodes.
Yeah,
impressive lineup. Very cool. How I Built This. Check it out. Listen to it after you listen to the show. Sorry, I couldn't help sneak that in. I'm gonna go next. We'll have Colby take us home. I got a quick link here for you guys. Bon Appetit magazine, fancy food magazine. They have a lot of great content. But one of the things I found, just Googling around the recipes, I'm not a professional chef by any stretch. You can tell by the knife wound on my hand. And they actually did this really great collection a while back called, they just call it BA's Best. And this is the recipes you need to know how to cook. And it's an awesome list of essential recipes from pancakes and scrambled eggs and omelets and like a Caesar salad and guacamole and like stuff you would assume to be pretty basic. But me as a fool who knows nothing about cooking, they're actually really good, even a burger, like how to make a really good burger and how to make brisket and tuna casserole and just a lot of kind of normal stuff, but it's a little nicer version and they're easy to make. For example, for the Super Bowl, I made their homemade mozzarella sticks. Hand-breaded, deep-fried, came out fantastic, very good. And I've done a few of their recipes. It's a nice, I keep this bookmarked, and when I'm looking for something new to try, I check it out here because they're all very simple, and they're all kind of things, you're not going to be surprised by or pretty hard to screw up. So check it out. The link will be on our website. It's bonappetit.com/collection/best. We'll have the full link on the site at don'tpanic.io along with this episode, but that is, you can also just Google Bon Appetit Best and it'll come up as well. So you can check that out. I'm going to do the pecan pie one of these days. That's next on my list. 'Cause I've never made one, but goddamn if I don't love pecan pie. Hot damn. All right. Colby?
Nice.
What do you got?
My pick's a video game. It's the most recent Tomb Raider video game. It's pretty fun. I picked it up this weekend. It was on sale for like half off, I think. So it's weird. I'm pretty sure this game came out a year ago or something on Xbox, and PC, and it like they must have done whatever like garbage exclusive deal. So it more recently came out on PS4. But it's good. It's the sequel. So it's the Rise of Tomb Raider, and it's the sequel to the, I don't know, the Tomb Raider one that came out like about the same time that the PS4 launched. And I played that one. I think I probably picked that one on the show. But I've been playing this one. It's super fun. It's the same, like, along the same lines as what Tomb Raider has always been, or the games with Nathan Drake. Are they just called Nathan Drake? Uncharted, those games. But it's pretty fun. I've been enjoying it. If you're looking for a game like that to play, I think I realized I have almost like infinite appetite for those sorts of games where like sort of like puzzle platformer with some kind of combat thing going on. I think they're fun. I like the puzzles. The puzzles are cool. Also, like, graphics in games are like crazy now. Everything looks awesome. So
Sweet.
It's yeah. On Amazon it is $39.75 for PS4. I don't know. Well, I got it for $29 on the PlayStation Store. I don't know if that's still happening or if that was a limited time thing, but
yeah, shop around, check it out. Also available for Xbox One, Xbox 360, and PC. The Amazon link will be on our website. If you use that link, we might make 30 cents. So give that a shot. All right, guys, that is it. If you can believe it, we're out of time. On this episode of Don't Panic, I'll go through the usual list of things to let folks know. Of course, our website, don'tpanic.io. You should go there. It's really nice. These guys, I don't think they get enough credit. They worked really hard to make it. It works like 95% of the time, and they deserve a lot of respect for that, so go check it out. Right? Blow it up, don'tpanic.io. All the episodes are there, all 157 of them, with audio, video, and the pics with every episode are there as well. Of course, you can subscribe. Best way to get the show on YouTube at youtube.com/don'tpanicshow. And for the audio, really anywhere you get podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, TuneIn Radio, most major podcast apps. We're kind of everywhere on that. I'll remind everyone to follow us on Twitter at Don't Panic Show. Let's see what else. And, of course, we do this live Monday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on our Facebook page at facebook.com/don'tpanicshow. Go there, like it, get the alerts when we go live. And, of course, while we're live, you can call in 508-644-TECH. That's 508-644-8324. And you can call that number even when we're not live and leave us a voicemail. Give us your thoughts, and if you do, we may just play it on the show next time. Now, we will be back next Monday with more technology news. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but I certainly hope it'll be fun, and I think it will be. So on behalf of Colby and Dan, this is Sean, thanking all of you so much for joining us and hoping we see you next time for even more awesome tech news here on Don't Panic.